Minho dragged himself up the stairs to his apartment. His legs ached from standing all day at the research facility. 12 hours of translating between human scientists and alien researchers had left him exhausted. He fumbled with his keys at the door, dropped them once, and finally got inside. The apartment was small but comfortable. One bedroom, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people, and a living room with a couch that had seen better days. Minho kicked off his shoes and headed straight for the kitchen. He needed food and sleep in that order. He was heating up leftovers when someone knocked on his door. Minho frowned. Nobody visited him this late. It was almost midnight. He walked to the door and checked the viewer screen. His eyes went wide. Liara stood in the hallway. She was his colleague from work, a Teruvian. Her body looked like it was made of living crystal. All sharp angles and geometric shapes. Normally she glowed with soft blue and purple lights from inside. But tonight something was wrong. Her colors looked dull, almost gray. Her edges seemed fuzzy, like she was barely holding her shape. Minho opened the door quickly. "Liara, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" She looked at him with her 3 eyes. Teruvians didn't have faces like humans, but Minho had worked with them long enough to read their expressions. Liara looked scared. "I apologize for the intrusion," she said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes, but slower than usual. "I should not have come. This is inappropriate." She turned to leave. "Wait," Minho said. He stepped into the hallway. "You came all the way here. Something must be really wrong. Please come inside." Liara hesitated. Her crystalline body flickered. For a moment, Minho thought she might shatter right there in the hallway. "I cannot sleep alone tonight," she said quietly. "I came here because I did not know where else to go." Minho blinked. Of all the things he expected her to say, that wasn't one of them. Teruvians were logical, practical, and extremely private. They didn't ask for help with personal problems. They definitely didn't show up at someone's apartment at midnight. "Okay," Minho said. He didn't understand, but he could see she needed help. "Come in, please." Liara entered slowly. She moved carefully, like each step took great effort. Minho closed the door and guided her to the couch. She sat down and the couch creaked under her weight. "Teruvians were denser than humans. Can I get you anything?" Minho asked. "Water?" "I don't think I have anything Teruvians eat, but—" "I do not need food or water," Liara said. I do not know how to explain it in human terms." Minho sat down in the chair across from her. "Try. Take your time." Liara's lights flickered again. She seemed to be struggling to find the words. "My species experiences something we call the hollow," she said. "It is a psychological condition. It happens when one of us becomes too isolated in our own consciousness. Do you understand?" Minho nodded slowly. "Like loneliness?" "More severe than that," Liara said. "Loneliness is wanting companionship. The hollow it is feeling like you are the only real thing in the universe. Everything else becomes distant and unreal. If it continues, we lose cohesion. We fall apart." Minho felt a chill run down his spine. "Fall apart? You mean literally?" "Yes, the mind stops holding the body together. It is fatal if not treated." "Oh my God," Minho said. He leaned forward. "Liara, you should be at a hospital." "Why did you come here?" "I have tried the medical treatments," Liara said. "Stasis chambers, neural suppressants, cognitive restructuring. Nothing works anymore. The hollow keeps returning stronger each time. Then we need to get you to a doctor right now." "No." Liara's voice was firm. "I came here because I heard something. A rumor among the non-human staff at the facility. They say humans have a unique ability. Something that no other species possesses." Minho sat back. "What ability?" "The ability to provide what some call psychic warmth. The ability to make others feel less alone just by being present. Most species think it is nonsense, but I am desperate. I need to know if it is real." Minho didn't know what to say. He had never heard of humans having any special ability. Humans were average at almost everything compared to other species. They weren't as strong as Vrexians, weren't as smart as Teruvians, didn't have the long lives of the Keyleth. Humans were just human. "I don't know if I can help," Minho said honestly. "But you're welcome to stay here tonight." "I have a guest room." "Well, it's more like a closet with a bed, but—" "I do not need a bed," Liara said. "I only need not to be alone." They sat in silence for a moment. Minho looked at Liara properly now. Her crystalline form was definitely deteriorating. The edges that should have been sharp were blurry. The lights inside her that should have been bright were dim. She looked like a statue that was slowly turning to dust. How long do you have? Minho asked quietly. If the hollow continues at this rate, perhaps 2 or 3 days before I lose cohesion completely. And you think I can help? I think you are my last option, Liara said. Among all the species in the Galactic Union, humans are known for one thing above all else. You form bonds easily. You empathize with creatures that are nothing like you. You adopt animals from other planets as pets. You cry at stories about people you have never met. Other species find this behavior strange, even primitive. But perhaps that strangeness is exactly what I need. Minho thought about his grandmother. She used to say that no one should face hard times alone. She said it was the human way to help each other through the darkness. He had always thought she was just being philosophical. Maybe she was stating a fact. Okay, Minho said. I don't know if I can do what you need, but I'll try. You can stay here as long as you need. We'll figure this out together. For the first time since she arrived, Liara's colors brightened slightly. Just a little, but enough to notice. Thank you, she said. I know this is a strange request. Inappropriate even, but I had nowhere else to turn. It's not inappropriate to ask for help, Minho said. That's another human thing, I guess. We help each other. It's what we do. Minho got up and went to the kitchen. He came back with 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to Liara. She looked at it curiously. I do not consume liquids, she said. I know, Minho said, but holding something warm is comforting. Trust me, it's a human thing. Liara carefully took the mug in her crystalline hands. She held it and seemed to relax just a little bit. Minho sat back down with his own tea. Outside the city hummed with life. Inside the small apartment, a human and an alien sat together in the quiet night. Neither of them knew if it would work. But for the first time in weeks, Liara felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone in the universe. They sat together for a while without talking. Minho sipped his tea and watched Liara. She was still holding her mug, turning it slowly in her hands. The steam rose up around her crystalline face. Her colors were still dull, but they weren't getting worse. That seemed like a good sign. Tell me more about the hollow, Minho said. Help me understand what you're going through. Liara set down her mug carefully. It is difficult to explain to someone who has never experienced it. Imagine that you start to doubt everything around you is real, not in a logical way, but in a deep, fundamental way. You look at other people and they seem like shadows, like images on a screen. You hear them talk, but their words lose meaning. That sounds terrifying, Minho said. It is. And the worst part is knowing that it is your own mind doing this to you. I know logically that you are real, that this apartment is real, that my colleagues at work are real, but I cannot feel it. Everything seems distant and hollow, empty. That is why we call it the hollow. Minho leaned back in his chair. Do all Teruvians get this? Or just some? Perhaps 1 in every 1,000 Teruvians will experience the hollow in their lifetime. For most, the medical treatments work. They spend a few days in a stasis chamber or take neural suppressants and they recover. But for a few of us, the treatments stop working. The hollow keeps coming back. What happens to those people? Liara was quiet for a moment. They usually choose voluntary dissolution. It is considered a dignified end. Better than losing cohesion involuntarily. Minho felt his chest tighten. You mean they choose to die? Yes. Have you thought about that? Voluntary dissolution? Of course, Liara said. Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact. It is the logical option when medical treatment fails. But I am not ready to make that choice yet. That is why I came here. One last attempt before I accept the inevitable. Minho set down his tea. His hands were shaking slightly. The idea that Liara was dying, that she had come to him as a last resort, made everything feel very real and very heavy. Why do Teruvians get the hollow in the first place? He asked. We are not entirely sure, Liara said. Most species in the galaxy are either hive-minded or emotionally self-sufficient. The Kaleeth, for example, have no concept of loneliness. They are perfectly content in isolation. The Vrexians are similar. They can go years without social contact and feel no distress. But Teruvians are different. We occupy an uncomfortable middle ground. We have individual consciousness like humans, but our culture values logic and self-sufficiency above all else. We are taught from the moment we gain awareness that we must stand alone, that depending on others is weakness. That emotional connection is primitive and unnecessary. Minho frowned. But if you're individuals, don't you need connection? Like humans do? That is the paradox, Liara said. We have the capacity for connection, but we have built a society that rejects it. Most Teruvians manage this successfully, but some of us cannot. We experience the hollow because we are trying to be something we are not designed to be, completely alone. That's so sad, Minho said. It is the price of civilization, Liara said. Or so we are told. Advanced societies require individuals to function independently. Emotional interdependence is seen as a weakness, a relic of more primitive times. Minho thought about that. He thought about his own life, his family, his friends, the way humans naturally formed groups and communities, the way they helped each other through hard times. Was that primitive? Maybe, but it had kept humanity going through countless challenges. Can I ask you something? Minho said. Why me specifically? There are other humans at the facility. Why come to my door? Liara's lights flickered in a pattern Minho had learned meant she was thinking carefully. I have observed you for the past 2 years we have worked together, she said. You are different from the other humans. You do not just tolerate working with non-humans. You genuinely seem to care about us. You remember details about our lives. You ask how we are feeling. You celebrate our successes and sympathize with our difficulties. Most humans at the facility are professional and polite, but you are present, engaged. I thought if any human could help me, it would be you. Minho felt his face grow warm. He had never thought of himself as special. He just treated his colleagues like people. Wasn't that normal? I don't know if I'm doing anything special, he said. I just try to be a decent person. That is exactly what makes you special, Liara said. Most species do not have to try. They are either incapable of empathy or they possess it naturally but do not need it. Humans are unique. You can survive alone, but you choose not to. You actively seek connection with others, even others who are completely different from you. This is why humans are called the bridge species. Bridge species? It is a term used in galactic anthropology circles. Humans are the only species that can truly understand both individualistic species and collective species. You can work with Kelith hive minds and Vrexian isolationists equally well. You bridge the gap. But most people consider it a curiosity, nothing more. No one thinks of it as a strength. But you do. I am hoping it is a strength, Liara said, because it is my last hope. They sat in silence again. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the climate control and the distant sounds of the city outside. Minho looked at Liara and tried to imagine what she was going through. To feel completely alone even when surrounded by others. To know that your own mind was betraying you. It must be awful. What do you need from me? Minho asked. I mean, practically. Do I need to talk to you? Keep you company? What helps? I do not know, Liara admitted. I have never tried human contact as a treatment. All I know is that the hollow makes me feel disconnected from reality. I thought perhaps being around someone who is skilled at creating connection might help anchor me. I'll do whatever I can, Minho said. You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we can figure out a better plan. Maybe talk to some doctors who specialize in cross-species psychology. No doctors, Liara said quickly. If my supervisors learn that I am experiencing the hollow again, they will force me into medical leave. And if the medical treatments fail again, they will strongly suggest voluntary dissolution. I cannot let that happen. Not yet. Okay, Minho said. No doctors. This stays between us, thank you. Minho stood up and stretched. It was past 1 in the morning now. He was exhausted, but he didn't want to just go to bed and leave Liara alone in the living room. Are you tired? He asked. I mean, do Teruvians sleep? We enter rest states, Liara said. But I cannot rest while experiencing the hollow. Every time I try, the disconnection becomes worse. It feels like I am disappearing. Then I'll stay up with you, Minho said. We can talk. Or watch something. Or just sit here. Whatever you need. Liara's colors brightened again just slightly. It was such a small change, but it filled Minho with hope. Maybe this was working. Maybe just being present, just being here with her was enough. You should sleep, Liara said. You have work tomorrow. So do you, Minho pointed out. Besides, I'm not leaving you alone. That's the whole point, right? You can't be alone tonight, so I'll stay with you. For the first time, Liara made a sound that might have been a laugh. It sounded like soft crystal chimes. Humans are strange, she said. Yeah, Minho agreed. We really are. Minho made more tea. He brought out some snacks for himself and settled back into his chair. Liara sat on the couch, her crystalline form catching the soft light from the lamp. They had hours until morning. Might as well talk. Can I tell you about my grandmother? Minho asked. If you wish, Liara said. She lived through a war, not one of the big galactic conflicts. This was before first contact. Back when humans were still fighting each other. She was just a kid when her city was bombed. She lost her home, most of her family, everything. That sounds traumatic, Liara said. It was, but she survived. You know how? Because her neighbors took her in. People who barely had enough food for themselves shared what they had with her. Strangers became family. She told me that the worst thing about war wasn't the bombs or the hunger. It was the fear of being alone, of having nobody to turn to. But she was not alone. No, and that's what saved her. She always said that humans are strongest when they stick together, when they refuse to let each other face the darkness alone. Liara tilted her head. A gesture Minho had learned meant she was interested. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was. She died a few years ago, but I think about her a lot. She taught me that caring about others isn't weakness. It's the most important strength we have. Teruvian culture teaches the opposite, Liara said. We are told that strength comes from standing alone, from not needing anyone. How's that working out? Minho asked gently. Liara's lights dimmed. Not well, apparently. Tell me about Teruvian culture, Minho said. Help me understand where you come from. Liara settled deeper into the couch. She seemed more solid now, less like she was about to fade away. We value logic above all else. Decisions must be made rationally without emotional interference. Children are raised in education centers, not by parents. We learn independence early. By the age of 3 cycles, young Teruvians are expected to function without emotional support from others. 3 cycles? That's like 5 human years, right? Approximately. That's so young, Minho said. Human children that age still need constant care and affection. We consider that a flaw in human development, Liara said. Then she paused. Or rather, we did. I am beginning to question many things I was taught. Like what? Like whether efficiency should be our highest goal. Teruvian society functions smoothly. We have very little crime, very little conflict. Everyone understands their role and performs it well. But perhaps we have sacrificed something important to achieve this. Connection, Minho said. Yes. Connection. Community. The feeling that you are part of something larger than yourself. These are considered primitive emotions in Teruvian culture. But maybe they are not primitive at all. Maybe they are necessary. Minho thought about that while he ate some crackers. Outside, the city lights glittered. Millions of humans living their lives, connected in thousands of invisible ways. Families, friends, neighbors, co-workers. All those tiny threads of connection that made up the fabric of human society. Tell me more about humans, Liara said. I have worked with your species for 2 years, but I realize I know very little about what makes you who you are. What do you want to know? Everything. Your history. Your culture. Why you are the way you are. Minho laughed. That's a big topic. Where do I even start? Start anywhere, Liara said. I have nowhere else to be, so Minho talked. He told her about human evolution, how humans had been weak and slow compared to other predators on Earth, how they survived by working together, hunting in groups, sharing food, protecting each other. He told her about human civilizations rising and falling, about art and music and literature, about the way humans told stories to make sense of the world and to connect with each other across time and space. He told her about his sister, Minji, who had gotten sick when she was 10. A disease that should have killed her. But she survived because their whole community rallied around the family. Neighbors brought food. Friends donated money for treatment. Teachers visited her in the hospital. Strangers organized fundraisers. The doctors said her recovery was remarkable, Minho said. But I don't think it was just the medicine that saved her. It was knowing that so many people cared, that she wasn't fighting alone. Your species is fascinating, Liara said. Her colors were definitely brighter now. The gray was fading, replaced by soft blues and purples. You are physically weak compared to most species in the galaxy. You have no natural weapons or armor. Your technology was primitive when you made first contact, yet you have thrived. We're stubborn, Minho said with a smile, and we refuse to give up on each other. That is not stubbornness, Liara said. That is something else. Something most species lack. What? Hope. Humans always seem to believe things can get better. Even in the darkest situations, you find reasons to keep going. You support each other through impossible odds. Other species find this irrational. I am beginning to think it is your greatest strength. They talked through the night. Minho told stories about human history, about scientists who spent their whole lives searching for answers, about activists who fought for justice even when it seemed hopeless, about ordinary people doing extraordinary things when someone they cared about needed help. Liara listened to everything. She asked questions. She wanted to understand not just what humans did, but why they did it. What drove them to care so much about others, even strangers, even aliens from other worlds. I think it's because we know what it's like to struggle, Minho said. Every human has faced hard times. We all know what it feels like to need help. So when we see someone else struggling, we recognize that feeling. We want to help because we've been there. Empathy, Liara said. Yeah. Empathy. It's not logical. It doesn't always make sense. But it's real. And it matters. As dawn approached, Minho noticed something. Liara's form was more solid now. Her edges were sharp again. The lights inside her body pulsed with clear, strong colors. She looked like she had when he first met her 2 years ago. Healthy, whole. Liara, he said quietly, look at yourself. She looked down at her hands. Her crystalline fingers were clear and well-defined. She held them up to the light and the colors refracted beautifully. I feel different, she said, wonder in her voice. The hollow is quieter. I can still sense it at the edges of my consciousness, but it is not consuming me. How is that possible? Minho asked. All you did was sit here and talk with me. Perhaps that is exactly what I needed, Liara said. Not medical intervention. Not chemicals or stasis or neural manipulation. Just connection. Just someone who cared enough to stay with me through the night. I didn't do anything special. You did everything special, Liara said. You treated me like I mattered. You shared your stories, your history, your family with me. You made me feel like I was part of something real, part of your world. That is what I needed. What I have always needed. What my entire species needs but refuses to acknowledge. Minho stood up and stretched. His back was sore from sitting all night, but he felt good. Better than good. He felt like he had done something important even if he didn't fully understand it. The sun's coming up, he said, looking out the window. We should probably get ready for work. Yes, Liara agreed. She stood up smoothly, no longer struggling with each movement. Minho, I do not know how to thank you properly. You saved my life tonight. You don't need to thank me, Minho said. That's what friends do. They help each other. Friends, Liara repeated. Is that what we are? I think so. Yeah. Liara's lights pulsed in a pattern that Minho had never seen before. He would learn later that it was the Teruvian equivalent of a smile. The research facility was busy the next morning. Scientists from a dozen different species moved through the hallways, carrying equipment and discussing their projects. Minho went straight to his workstation, trying to act normal despite having not slept all night. Liara arrived an hour later. She moved through the lab with confidence, her crystalline form glowing with healthy colors. Several of her Teruvian colleagues stopped what they were doing to stare at her. One of them, a supervisor named Callis, approached her immediately. Liara, a word, please. They moved to a private office. Through the glass walls, Minho could see Callis gesturing sharply. He looked angry. Or maybe concerned. It was hard to tell with Teruvians. 10 minutes later, Liara emerged. She came straight to Minho's desk. Callis noticed my recovery, she said quietly. He demanded to know how I overcame the hollow without taking medical leave. What did you tell him? The truth, that I stayed with you last night. That human companionship helped where medical treatment failed. Minho felt his stomach drop. Was that a good idea? I do not know. But I will not lie about what saved my life. The rest of the day was strange. Word spread quickly through the facility. By lunch, everyone seemed to know that a human had somehow helped a Teruvian overcome the hollow. Minho heard whispers as he walked through the cafeteria. He saw aliens looking at him with curiosity, skepticism, or sometimes amusement. A Vrexian engineer named Thorn sat down at Minho's table uninvited. Vrexians were massive creatures built like living tanks. Thorn had to hunch over to fit in the human-sized chair. I heard an interesting story today, Thorn said. His voice was deep and rough. Yeah, Minho tried to focus on his food. About you helping a Teruvian, using nothing but conversation and presence. Thorn leaned forward. Is it true? I guess. I mean, I just kept her company. We talked. That's all? That's all, Thorn repeated. He was quiet for a moment. Then I have nightmares. From the war. The border conflict 20 years ago. I was a soldier. Saw things. Did things. Vrexian culture says warriors should not dwell on the past. We are taught to be strong, to endure, but the nightmares never stop. Minho looked up at Thorn. The big alien's eyes were fixed on the table. Have you talked to anyone about it? Minho asked. Who would I talk to? Vrexian doctors tell me to take sedatives, to suppress the dreams, but that only makes them worse when they come back. And they always come back. I'm sorry. That sounds really hard. Could you help me? Like you helped the Teruvian? Minho blinked. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a therapist. I just talked with Liara, listened to her, stayed with her when she needed someone. That is exactly what I need, Thorn said. Someone who will listen. Someone who will not judge me for being weak. You're not weak for having nightmares, Minho said. That's trauma. It's normal to need help processing trauma. Not in Vrexian culture. In my culture, asking for help means you are unfit for duty, unfit for society. So we suffer in silence, Minho thought about it. He was exhausted from staying up all night with Liara. He had work to do. But looking at Thorn, seeing the pain in those alien eyes, he couldn't say no. Okay, Minho said. Come by my apartment tonight. We'll talk. Thorn's entire body seemed to relax. Thank you. I will bring food. It is Vrexian custom to bring gifts when accepting hospitality. That night, both Thorn and Liara showed up at Minho's apartment. Then another alien arrived, a young Silith named Yuna. The Silith were energy beings who barely had physical form. Yuna flickered and shifted as she floated in the doorway. I apologize for intruding, Yuna said. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I heard that you help those who are struggling. Is it true? Minho's small apartment suddenly felt very crowded. I don't know if I help exactly, he said, but come in. Everyone's welcome. So began the strangest evening of Minho's life. 4 beings from 4 different species sat in his living room. Thorn talked about his war trauma, about watching friends die, about the guilt that haunted him. Yuna explained that Silith were supposed to reproduce through emotional resonance, but modern Silith had lost that ability. She felt disconnected from her own species, like she was missing something fundamental. Liara shared her ongoing struggle with the Hollow. Minho mostly listened. He made tea. He asked questions. He shared stories from his own life when they seemed relevant. Nothing special. Nothing medical or scientific. Just basic human connection. By the time everyone left, it was past midnight again. Minho collapsed into bed, exhausted but feeling strangely fulfilled. The next day at work, his friend Jiwan pulled him aside. What are you doing? Jiwan asked. She was another human, working in the facilities administration department. What do you mean? I heard you're running some kind of therapy group out of your apartment. With aliens. It's not therapy, Minho said. We just talk. They needed someone to listen. Minho, you're not qualified for this. What if something goes wrong? What if someone gets hurt? I'm not treating anyone. I'm not prescribing anything. I'm just being a friend to people who need friends. Jiwan sighed. I'm worried about you. This could get you in trouble. With who? I don't know. But you're dealing with alien psychology. Different species, different problems. What if you make things worse? I'm not making things worse, Minho said. If anything, I'm helping. Liara hasn't had a single episode of The Hollow since that first night. Thorn says his nightmares are less frequent. Yuna feels more connected to reality. All I'm doing is giving them what every being needs. Someone who cares. Jiwan looked unconvinced, but she dropped the subject. Over the next week, more aliens started showing up at Minho's apartment. A Kelith who had been separated from their hive mind and couldn't adjust to individual consciousness. A Draven who struggled with anger issues. A Rethian dealing with grief. Word spread through the facility and beyond. The human who helped aliens with their problems. The human who somehow succeeded where medical science failed. Minho's apartment became a sanctuary, a place where beings from across the galaxy could come and feel safe, feel heard, feel less alone. His supervisor, a human woman named Hyeji, called him into her office one day. I've been hearing interesting things about you, she said. I can explain. You don't need to explain. I think what you're doing is remarkable. But I'm concerned about the workload. You're staying up late every night helping others. You look exhausted. I'm managing. Are you? Minho, you can't help everyone. You need to take care of yourself too. I know. But I can't just turn people away. They need help. Hyeji studied him for a long moment. You're a good person, Minho. But good people burn out if they don't set boundaries. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. But Minho knew he couldn't stop. Too many beings needed what he offered. And humans, he thought, were built for this. Built to help others. Built to create connections across impossible divides. Maybe that was humanity's true purpose in the galaxy. Not to be the strongest or smartest, but to be the ones who cared. Late that night, after everyone had left his apartment, Minho stood on his small balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there were thousands of species, billions of beings. How many of them were suffering in silence because their cultures didn't allow for vulnerability? How many needed connection but didn't know how to ask for it? He couldn't help them all, but he could help the ones who came to his door. And maybe that was enough. 3 weeks after Liara first showed up at his door, Minho received an official communication. It came through his work terminal, marked with the seal of the Galactic Medical Consortium. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. The message was brief and formal. Minho was under investigation for practicing unlicensed psychological treatment on non-human species. He was ordered to cease all therapeutic activities immediately. A hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks from now. Minho read it 3 times, trying to understand. He wasn't practicing therapy. He was just talking to people, listening to them, being their friend. How could that be illegal? Jiwan found him staring at his screen. "You okay?" she asked. He showed her the message. Her face went pale. "Oh no, I was afraid something like this would happen." "I wasn't doing anything wrong," Minho said. "You were helping aliens with psychological problems, without any medical training or license. From the consortium's perspective, that's a big deal. But I didn't hurt anyone. Everyone I've talked to is doing better. That might not matter to them." Word of the investigation spread quickly. That afternoon, Callus approached Minho in the hallway. The Teruvian supervisor looked angry. "This is your fault," Callus said. "You convinced Liara to reject proper medical treatment. You interfered with established protocols. Now the consortium is investigating our entire facility." "I didn't convince her to do anything," Minho said. "She came to me because nothing else was working." "That is not how the consortium sees it. They believe you manipulated vulnerable individuals for your own purposes." "What purposes?" "I'm not charging money. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just helping people who need help. The road to disaster is paved with good intentions," Callus said. "You are a human with no understanding of alien psychology. You have no business interfering in matters you do not comprehend." Callus walked away, leaving Minho standing alone in the hallway. That night, only Liara showed up at his apartment. The others had been warned to stay away. "They are afraid," Liara explained. "Afraid that associating with you will damage their reputations. That they will be seen as weak or foolish for accepting help from a human." "Are you afraid?" Minho asked, terrified. "But not for the reasons you might think. I am afraid of what will happen if you are forced to stop. The Hollow has not returned since that first night, but I know it is still there, waiting. If I lose access to this, to you, to human connection, I do not know if I can survive." Minho made tea with shaking hands. "Tell me about the investigation. What are they actually accusing me of?" "The consortium has 3 main charges. First, practicing psychology without proper credentials. Second, endangering the health of alien species through untested methods. Third, undermining established medical authority. Those all sound bad. They are. If the consortium finds you guilty, you could be banned from all contact with non-humans. You could lose your job. You could even be deported from Earth stations and colonies." Minho sat down hard on his couch. "I was just trying to help, I know. But the consortium does not like things it cannot understand or control. What you do, what humans do, defies their scientific models. They cannot quantify empathy. They cannot measure compassion. They cannot put connection in a test tube and study it. So they reject it as invalid. That's insane. That is bureaucracy," Liara said. "The consortium has spent centuries building their reputation as the ultimate authority on galactic health and psychology. They cannot admit that a human with no training succeeded where they failed. It would undermine everything they stand for." 2 days later, a formal auditor arrived at the research facility. His name was Vexel, a Korthan with metallic skin and cold, calculating eyes. He spent 3 days interviewing everyone at the facility, asking detailed questions about Minho's activities. Minho was called in for an interview. Vexil sat across from him in a sterile conference room, recording every word. "You have been providing psychological services to multiple non-human individuals. Vexel said. It wasn't a question. I've been talking to friends who needed someone to listen. Friends. Yet many of these individuals sought you out specifically for help with serious psychological conditions. The hollow, combat trauma, species dysphoria. These are not casual conversations between friends. Maybe they started that way, Minho admitted. But they became friendships. Real friendships. Do you have any training in psychology? No. Any medical background? No. Any formal education in alien biology or culture? Just what I've learned on the job. Vexel made notes. Yet you felt qualified to treat serious psychological conditions. I wasn't treating anything. I was just being there for people who needed someone. People, Vexel repeated. These are not people, Mr. Minho. They are aliens. Different species with different psychologies. What works for humans does not necessarily work for them. You had no way of knowing if your actions would help or harm. But they did help. Everyone I talked to got better, so you claim. However, we have no scientific data to support that. No controlled studies. No peer review. Just anecdotal evidence, which is worthless from a medical standpoint. Minho felt frustration rising in his chest. How do you measure whether someone feels less alone? How do you quantify connection? Just because you can't put it in a report doesn't mean it's not real. If it cannot be measured, it cannot be verified. If it cannot be verified, it cannot be approved for use. This is basic medical ethics. The interview went on for 2 hours. By the end, Minho felt exhausted and defeated. Vexel clearly had his mind made up. This wasn't an investigation. It was a conviction. Over the next week, the situation got worse. The consortium released a public statement warning against untrained humans providing unauthorized psychological services to alien populations. They claimed Minho's actions were dangerous, and irresponsible news of the case spread across the galaxy. Some media outlets portrayed Minho as a charlatan, taking advantage of vulnerable aliens. Others defended him, but their voices were quieter. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Liara, Thorne, Yuna, and several others volunteered to testify on Minho's behalf, but the consortium announced that their testimonies would not be considered valid evidence. Why not? Minho asked Liara. They claim you emotionally manipulated us, that we are not in a proper state of mind to give objective testimony. They dismiss anything we say as emotional delusion rather than fact. So they won't listen to the people I actually helped? No, they will only consider expert medical opinions, and all the experts work for the consortium. Minho spent sleepless nights preparing for the hearing. Heiji and Jiwon helped him write his defense, but they all knew it was probably hopeless. The consortium had the power, the authority, and the predetermined conclusion. The night before the hearing, Minho sat alone in his apartment. For the first time since this all started, he felt truly defeated. He had tried to do something good. He had helped people who desperately needed help. And now he was being punished for it. There was a knock on his door. He opened it to find Liara, Thorne, Yuna, and a dozen other aliens crowded in the hallway. We are not letting you face this alone, Liara said. Whether the consortium listens or not, we will stand with you. Because that is what humans taught us to do. Stand together. Support each other. Refuse to let our friends face darkness alone. Minho felt tears stinging his eyes. These beings from so many different worlds had come together because of something simple. Because he had cared about them. Because he had shown them that connection mattered. Thank you, he said. All of you. Thank you. They crowded into his small apartment. They talked and shared stories late into the night. And for the first time since the investigation began, Minho felt hope. The hearing took place in a massive chamber designed for Galactic Council proceedings. Hundreds of seats rose in tiers around a central floor where Minho stood, feeling very small. Representatives from dozens of species filled the room. The Galactic Medical Consortium sat in a special section, their faces stern and judgmental. Vexel presented the case against Minho first. He spoke for over an hour, detailing every conversation Minho had with aliens seeking help. He described it as reckless, endangerment, and psychological manipulation. He showed reports from consortium doctors, claiming that Minho's methods had no scientific basis and could have caused serious harm. This human has been playing with alien minds like they are toys, Vexil said. He has convinced vulnerable individuals to reject proper medical treatment in favor of his amateur theories about connection and empathy. The fact that no one has been obviously harmed yet is pure luck. We must stop this before a tragedy occurs. When Vexel finished, the room was silent. Many of the representatives nodded in agreement. The case seemed closed. Then it was humanity's turn. Hyeji stood up. She was Minho's supervisor and had volunteered to speak on his behalf. She walked to the center of the floor with confidence. I am Hyeji, Senior Administrator at the Interspecies Research Facility. I have worked with Minho for 5 years. I would like to address the charges against him. Proceed, the council leader said. First, the charge of practicing psychology without a license. This assumes that what Minho did qualifies as psychology, but he never claimed to be a therapist. He never diagnosed conditions or prescribed treatments. He simply listened to individuals who needed someone to talk to. Is listening now illegal? Some murmuring in the audience. Vexel stood up. He was treating serious psychological conditions. No, Hyeji interrupted. He was being a friend. There is a difference. Humans have been supporting each other through difficult times for millions of years, long before psychology existed as a science. This is not medicine. This is basic social behavior. She pulled up a holographic display showing research data. Let me present evidence. We conducted a study of 50 aliens who visited Minho. Before seeing him, all showed measurable signs of psychological distress. After spending time with him, 47 showed significant improvement. 3 showed no change. None were harmed. These are better outcomes than most consortium treatments achieve, Vexel objected. This is not a controlled study. There are too many variables. Exactly, Hyeji said. Life is full of variables. The consortium wants everything to be controlled and measured. But psychology doesn't work that way. Especially not for emotional support, which is what Minho provided. Not medical treatment support. Jiwon stood up next. She had gathered testimonies from dozens of aliens who had visited Minho. The consortium had said these testimonies wouldn't be considered, but Jiwon presented them anyway. The consortium claims these individuals are emotionally compromised and cannot give valid testimony. But that's exactly the point. They came to Minho because they were emotionally compromised. They were suffering, and he helped them. Listen to their words. She played recordings. Thorne describing how his nightmares had decreased. Yuna explaining how she felt reconnected to her species. Khalith talking about learning to function as an individual. Dozens of voices all saying the same thing. Minho had helped them when nothing else worked. The consortium dismisses this as emotional delusion, Jiwon said. But these are real beings whose lives improved. Does the consortium care more about maintaining their authority than helping people? Because that's what this case is really about. Not protecting aliens from harm. Protecting the consortium from being proven wrong. The murmuring in the audience grew louder. Some representatives looked thoughtful now. Then Liara stood up. She hadn't been planning to speak, but she couldn't stay silent anymore. I am Liara, Teruvian, senior researcher in crystalline physics. I am also someone who would be dead without Minho's help. She walked to the center of the floor. Her crystalline form caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the chamber. I suffered from the hollow, a condition that my species considers shameful. We are taught to hide it, to handle it privately. The official treatment is medical intervention, followed by voluntary dissolution if the treatment fails. Do you know what voluntary dissolution means? It means choosing to die rather than admit we need help. Some shocked reactions in the audience. Clearly not everyone knew this about Teruvian culture. I tried every treatment the consortium offered. Stasis chambers, neural suppressants, cognitive therapy. Nothing worked. The hollow kept returning stronger each time. I was weeks away from dissolution when I went to Minho. Not because I believed he could cure me, because I had nowhere else to turn. She turned to face the consortium representatives. He saved my life by doing something radical. He treated me like I mattered. He listened to me. He shared his own stories and made me feel connected to something real. This is not medical treatment. This is basic decency, basic compassion. And the fact that the consortium cannot understand or measure it does not make it invalid. How many Teruvians die from the hollow each year? Liara asked the chamber. The official number is classified, but I can tell you, thousands. Thousands of my people choose death because our culture and our medical establishment have convinced us that needing connection is weakness. That is the real tragedy here. Not that a human offered help, but that we built a society where asking for help means you are worthless. The chamber was completely silent now. Liara continued. Humans are different. They openly admit they need each other. They build entire cultures around supporting one another. Other species mock this as primitive. But maybe we are the primitive ones. Maybe the species who cannot admit they need connection are the ones who have failed to evolve properly. Minho watched in amazement as Liara spoke. She was risking her career, her reputation, everything to defend him. Other aliens stood up to speak. Thorn talked about Vrexian warrior culture that forced soldiers to suffer in silence. Yuna described how modern Silith society had lost touch with their emotional nature. A Khalith explained how being separated from the hive mind felt like drowning, and how Minho had taught them to breathe again. Finally, Minho was allowed to speak. He stood in the center of the chamber facing hundreds of alien eyes. I'm just a regular person, he said. I don't have special training or abilities. I just did what any human would do when they see someone suffering. I helped, I listened, I cared, that's all. He paused, gathering his thoughts. You want to know what's wrong with the galaxy? It's not that humans are offering help. It's that so few others do. You've all built these advanced civilizations with incredible technology and complex social structures. But somewhere along the way, you forgot something basic. You forgot that intelligent beings need connection, need support, need to know they're not alone. Humans figured that out millions of years ago, Minho continued. Back when we were weak and slow and had nothing but each other. We survived because we refused to let our people face danger alone. We built societies around that principle. And yeah, maybe it makes us emotional and irrational sometimes, but it also makes us strong in ways you don't measure. He looked directly at Vexil. You say what I did was dangerous. You know what's actually dangerous? Telling beings that they have to handle everything alone. That needing help is shameful. That connection is primitive. That's what kills people, not empathy. Isolation. I won't apologize for helping people, Minho said. And if the consortium wants to punish me for that, fine. But you can't punish away the basic truth. Everyone needs someone. Every species. Every individual. And humans will keep offering that support whether you approve or not. Because that's who we are. The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives cheered. Others argued. The consortium members looked furious. But many aliens in the audience were standing, showing support. The council leader called for order. This hearing is adjourned. We will deliberate and announce our decision within 3 days. As people filed out of the chamber, dozens of aliens approached Minho. They thanked him. They shared their own stories of isolation and pain. They asked if he could help others like them. Minho realized something in that moment. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about whether the galaxy would continue forcing beings to suffer alone, or whether it would embrace a different way. A human way. The 3 days of waiting were torture. Minho tried to work, tried to sleep, tried to act normal. But everywhere he went, people were talking about the hearing. The footage had been broadcast across the entire Galactic Union. Billions of beings had watched. Now everyone had an opinion. Some said Minho was a hero. Others called him a fraud. Arguments broke out on news programs, in workplaces, in homes across hundreds of worlds. The case had touched something deep, a question that every society had answered differently. How important is connection? How much do we need each other? On the 3rd day, the Galactic Council called a public session to announce their decision. Minho sat in the front row with Liara, Hyeji, Jiwan, Thorn, and Yuna. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The council leader stood. We have deliberated on the case of human Minho and the charges brought by the Galactic Medical Consortium. This has been one of the most difficult decisions in recent council history. The issues raised go far beyond one individual's actions. They touch on fundamental questions about the nature of psychological health and the role of community in maintaining it. Minho held his breath. After extensive review of all evidence and testimony, we have reached the following conclusions. First, regarding the charge of practicing psychology without a license, we find that the human Minho did not practice medicine or psychology in any formal sense. He provided social support, which is not and should not be regulated. This charge is dismissed. Relief flooded through Minho. 1 down. Second, regarding the charge of endangering alien health through untested methods, we find that the evidence shows no harm occurred. In fact, multiple testimonies and data suggest significant improvement in the subject's conditions. While the methods cannot be explained by current scientific models, the outcomes speak for themselves. This charge is dismissed. 2 down. Minho squeezed Liara's crystalline hand. Third, regarding the charge of undermining medical authority. This is where our deliberations became most complex. The council leader paused. We find that the Galactic Medical Consortium has indeed been challenged by these events. However, that challenge was necessary and appropriate. The consortium has focused so heavily on quantifiable treatments that it has neglected the fundamental importance of social connection in maintaining psychological health. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several consortium members looked shocked. Therefore, we are ordering the following changes. The consortium must develop new protocols that recognize social support as a valid form of psychological care. They must conduct research into the effects of companionship, community, and emotional connection across all species, and they must stop treating the need for connection as a pathology to be cured. The council leader looked directly at Minho. You are cleared of all charges. More than that, you have opened our eyes to something we should have seen long ago. Humanity's capacity for empathy and connection is not a weakness or a primitive trait. It is an evolutionary strength that this galaxy desperately needs. The chamber erupted in applause. Minho felt tears streaming down his face. Liara's colors brightened to brilliant intensity. All around him, his friends were celebrating, but the council leader wasn't finished. We are establishing a new branch of the Galactic Health Organization called Social Therapy Services. It will be run jointly by human experts and alien psychologists. Its mission is to provide connection-based support to any being who needs it, free of charge and free of stigma. Additionally, the council leader continued, we are inviting Earth to create a companion corps, trained humans who can provide emotional support across the galaxy. This is not charity from humanity to other species. This is recognition that humans possess a valuable skill that benefits everyone. Over the next months, everything changed. Minho became the director of the first social therapy center on Earth. Hundreds of humans volunteered for the companion corps. They were trained not in medicine or psychology, but in cultural sensitivity, active listening, and the art of being present for others. The impact was immediate and profound. Teruvians opened support centers for those experiencing the hollow, using human methods of group connection and shared vulnerability. Deaths from the condition dropped by 70% in the first year. Brexians created veteran support groups where soldiers could talk about their trauma without shame. The warrior culture began to shift, recognizing that true strength included acknowledging pain. The Silith established emotional reconnection programs. Young Silith learned to feel again, to bond with others, to experience the full range of emotions their ancestors had known. Across the galaxy, species began questioning their assumptions about connection, community, and the importance of supporting one another. It wasn't a revolution. It was something quieter but more powerful, a shift in consciousness, a recognition that no one should have to face the universe alone. 6 months after the hearing, Minho stood on the observation deck of a new space station dedicated to social therapy services. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked here every day, bringing people who needed help, who needed connection, who needed to remember they mattered. Liara joined him at the window. She had become the galaxy's leading researcher on the psychology of connection. Her work was transforming how species understood their own minds. Do you ever think about that first night? She asked. When I showed up at your door? All the time, Minho said. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew you needed someone. That is exactly why it worked, Liara said. You did not try to fix me. You did not try to cure me. You just refused to let me be alone. That made all the difference. They watched the ships coming and going in silence for a while. Then Liara spoke again. I have been studying human evolution, trying to understand what makes your species unique. Do you know what I discovered? What? Every other intelligent species evolved either as individuals or as collectives. Humans are the only species that evolved as both. You are individuals with your own thoughts and identities, but you are also fundamentally social creatures who cannot truly survive alone. You exist in the space between independence and interdependence. That sounds complicated, Minho said with a smile. It is, but it is also your strength. You understand what it means to be alone because you are individuals, and you understand the necessity of connection because you are social. This allows you to bridge gaps between species that cannot understand each other. The Kelith hive minds and the Vrexian isolationists both think you are strange, but you can work with both because you contain both natures within you. Is that why they call us the bridge species? Yes, but it is more than that. Humans do not just bridge between other species. You bridge between isolation and connection for everyone. You remind us all that we need each other no matter how advanced we become. A new ship docked at the station. Mino could see passengers exiting. Aliens of all species, many of them looking lost or scared. But human companions were there to greet them, to welcome them, to let them know they were not alone. Do you think this will last? Mino asked. Or will the galaxy go back to the way it was? I do not know, Liara admitted. Old ways die hard. Many species still see emotional connection as weakness, but you have planted a seed. You have shown us a different path. Whether we follow it is up to us. Minho thought about his grandmother, about her stories of surviving war by refusing to let people face it alone, about how humans had always found strength in each other, even in the darkest times. That had never been weakness. It had always been their greatest power. Why do you think humans never gave up on connection? Liara asked. Even when it would have been easier to become solitary? Minho looked out at the stars. Billions of worlds, trillions of beings, all of them facing their own struggles, their own fears, their own versions of the hollow. Because the alternative is facing the universe alone, he said, and we decided a long time ago that no one should have to do that. Not humans, not anyone. That is a remarkable decision, Liara said. To choose connection even when it makes you vulnerable. To choose community even when it makes you dependent on others. Most species see that as foolish. Maybe it is foolish, Minho said. But it's also human. And I think the galaxy is starting to realize that sometimes being human is exactly what's needed. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ships arrive. Each one carrying people who were searching for something. Understanding, support, connection. The things that humans had always known were essential, even if they couldn't explain why. The galaxy was changing, slowly but definitely, and it was changing because humanity had refused to accept that suffering alone was necessary or noble. They had offered a different way. A way based not on logic or efficiency or individual strength, but on the simple radical belief that everyone deserves someone who cares. Minho smiled as he watched a human companion greet a frightened young Teruvian who had just arrived at the station. The companion didn't do anything complicated. They just smiled, offered a welcoming gesture, and walked alongside the Teruvian as they entered the facility. Simple, basic, human. That was the moment he realized humanity's true gift to the galaxy. Not technology or weapons or some special ability, just the willingness to walk beside someone through their darkness,